Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his forehead as he watched the morning sun rise over New Haven. The red-orange light painted the sky in beautiful colors that reminded him of Earth. 3 years of hard work had turned this rocky planet into something that looked almost like home. Green fields stretched out beyond the colony walls, and the air smelled fresh and clean. "Another good day for the harvest," said Lisa Davis as she joined him on the observation deck. The chief engineer had dirt under her fingernails and oil stains on her work clothes, but she was smiling. "The cornfields are doing better than we hoped. We might even have enough to send some back to Earth next year." Jake nodded and took a sip of his coffee. Real coffee, not the synthetic stuff they had eaten for the first 2 years. The colony of New Haven was finally becoming a real place where people could live and work. 5,000 colonists had made this world their home, and more ships were coming from Earth every few months. "The kids are excited about the school opening next week," Lisa continued. "My daughter can't wait to show her friends the rock collection she found near the river." Everything was perfect. Too perfect, Jake thought, but he pushed the worry away. They had worked too hard to let fear spoil their success. That was when the sky began to change. At first, it looked like clouds gathering for a storm. But the shapes were wrong. These were not natural clouds. They were too straight, too smooth, too bright. Jake grabbed his binoculars and looked up. What he saw made his blood turn cold. Ships, enormous ships that looked like they were made of crystal and light. They hung in the sky like giant diamonds, so large that they blocked out the sun. Jake counted at least 20 of them, each one bigger than the entire colony below. "Lisa, get to the communication center," Jake said quietly. "Send an emergency message to Earth. Tell them we have visitors." Lisa ran down the hallway, her boots echoing on the metal floors. Jake kept watching the sky, hoping this was just a peaceful first contact situation. Maybe these aliens were friendly. Maybe they just wanted to trade or learn about human culture. Hope died when the voice entered his mind that it was not a voice he heard with his ears. It was a voice that spoke directly into his thoughts, loud and clear and impossible to ignore. Every person in the colony heard it at the same time, from the youngest child to the oldest worker. "Greetings, lesser beings. I am High Celestial Vex Thara, chosen of the eternal light, speaker for the divine will of the Zephyrian Empire. You have built your small nest on holy ground without permission. This world belongs to the gods, as do all worlds in this sacred region of space." Jake felt his knees go weak. The voice was beautiful and terrible at the same time, like music and thunder mixed together. He wanted to fall down and worship whatever was speaking to him, but he fought against the feeling. "Do not fear small creatures. The gods are merciful to those who serve faithfully. You will be given the honor of joining our divine empire. Your lives will have meaning as you work to fulfill the will of heaven. Your children will grow up knowing their place in the cosmic order." Around the colony, people were falling to their knees. Some were crying. Others were praying to whatever god they believed in. Jake forced himself to stay standing, but it was the hardest thing he had ever done. "I will now demonstrate the power of the divine, so that you may understand why resistance is both futile and sinful." The largest ship began to glow brighter. A beam of golden light shot down from it and touched the ground near the colony's main gate. Where the light hit, the earth began to rise into the air. Tons of rock and soil floated up like they weighed nothing at all. The floating rocks began to spin and dance in the air, forming complex patterns that hurt to look at directly. The light moved to the heavy construction equipment that the colonists used for building. The massive machines that normally required fusion power to move were lifted into the air like toys. They spun and twisted, their metal frames bending into impossible shapes before being gently set back down. "This is but the smallest fraction of our power," the voice continued. We can move mountains, stop rivers, and reshape worlds with a thought. We are the gods your ancestors dreamed of, and we have come to claim what is ours. The light show continued for an hour. The aliens made the aurora dance in the daytime sky. They turned the clouds into fantastic shapes that told stories of their victories over other worlds. They made the very air shimmer with colors that had no names. When it was over, the voice spoke one final time. You have 72 hours to prepare for divine integration. Choose leaders who will help organize your people for their new lives of service. Prepare your young ones to learn the sacred ways. Most importantly, abandon any thoughts of resistance or escape. The gods see all, know all, and judge all. Those who serve faithfully will be rewarded. Those who rebel will face consequences beyond your imagination. The ships faded from bright crystal to a dull gray, but they remained in the sky like a constant. Reminder of the new reality. Jake found Lisa in the communication center, frantically working at the control panel. Her face was pale, and her hands were shaking. I can't get through to Earth, she said. Everything is being blocked. Radio, quantum transmissions, even the emergency beacon. It's like there's a wall around the entire planet. What about the other colonies? Nothing. We're completely cut off. Lisa slumped in her chair. Jake, what are we going to do? Those things ... They really do seem like gods. Jake looked out the window at the people of New Haven. Some were still on their knees, staring up at the sky. Others were gathering in small groups, talking quietly and looking scared. Children were crying, and parents were holding them close. We're going to survive, Jake said. We're going to take care of our people, and we're going to find a way to get word to Earth. And if these aliens think they can just show up and demand we bow down to them, they're going to learn something about humans. What's that? We don't believe in gods. We believe in ourselves. The countdown had begun. 72 hours to prepare for a new life of slavery. But Jake Morrison had not come all this way to give up now. Somewhere out there, he hoped, help was coming. 6 months before the attack on New Haven, Admiral Sam Carter stood in a classified briefing room deep beneath the Colorado mountains. The room was filled with Earth's top military leaders, scientists, and intelligence officers. The holographic display showed star maps with red danger zones marked throughout human space. The situation is getting worse, said Dr. Helen Park, the head of xenobiology research. We've lost contact with 3 more colonies in the past month. The pattern is always the same. First contact, then complete silence. When our scout ships finally reach these worlds, they find the colonies still there, but the people are different. Different how? Asked General Bill Cooper, commander of the Mars Defense Force. They worship their new alien masters. They call them gods and refuse to leave, even when we offer to evacuate them. It's like their minds have been changed somehow. Admiral Carter studied the reports on his tablet. The enemy was getting closer to Earth with each attack. At this rate, they would reach the core human worlds within 2 years. What do we know about these aliens? Carter asked. They call themselves Zephyrians, said Intelligence Director Mary Stone. They're about 8 feet tall, with crystalline skin that glows from within. They seem to have advanced psychic abilities and technology that's far beyond anything we've seen. Most importantly, they believe they're actually divine beings with the right to rule over all other species. How many species have they conquered? At least 17 that we know of. The Altarians, the Vega Collective, the Centauri Republic. All of them had advanced civilizations and powerful militaries. All of them fell without putting up much of a fight. Carter felt a chill run down his spine. Humanity had always known that first contact with hostile aliens was possible, but this was worse than their worst fears. These weren't just conquerors looking for resources or territory. These were fanatics who believed they had a divine right to enslave entire species. "What about the Valkyrie project?" Carter asked. "How close are we to completion?" Dr. James Wright, the chief engineer, looked up from his notes. "The ship is almost ready, Admiral. We've been working around the clock for the past year. The fusion drives are tested and operational. The adaptive armor system is beyond anything we've ever built. And the weapons? The weapons are designed to kill gods," finished Captain Nina Rodriguez as she entered the room. The veteran officer had just returned from the final test flights, and she looked tired but determined. "Captain Rodriguez, give us your assessment." Carter said. Nina activated the holographic display, showing a sleek warship that looked like a cross between a sword and a shark. The Hughes Valkyrie was humanity's first true space battleship designed specifically to fight enemies with superior technology. "She's fast, Admiral. Faster than anything we've ever built. The new fusion drives can push her to 0.8 light speed in normal space. The adaptive armor learns from every hit and adjusts its molecular structure to resist similar attacks. The AI system can process tactical data faster than any human crew." "What about the crew?" asked General Cooper. 200 of our best," Nina replied. "Chief Engineer Tony Martinez from the Europa shipyards. Tactical Officer Amy Johnson, who graduated first in her class from the Academy. Communications Specialist Ben Parker, who speaks 12 alien languages. These people are the best humanity has to offer." Carter nodded. The Valkyrie project had been his idea, born from the realization that humanity's existing military was not prepared for the threats they were facing. Traditional Earth-based thinking would not work against enemies who fought with religious fervor and impossible technology. "The ship's AI is named Phoenix," Dr. Wright continued. "It's based on quantum computing systems that can adapt and evolve during combat. Phoenix doesn't just follow orders. It learns from the enemy and develops new strategies in real time." "Weapon systems?" Carter asked. "Adaptive plasma cannons that can adjust their frequency to penetrate any known shield technology. Quantum torpedoes that can phase through solid matter. Point defense systems that can track and destroy thousands of targets simultaneously. And if all else fails, we've installed a ramming prow made of collapsed matter. At 0.8 light speed, the Valkyrie can punch through a moon." The room fell silent as everyone absorbed the implications. Humanity was building a ship designed to fight gods, and they were betting everything on it working. "There's something else," Nina added quietly. "The Psychological Warfare Division has been studying the Zephyrian conquest pattern. They always start with the same speech about divine right and superior power. They're used to enemies who fall down and worship them immediately. And humans don't worship easily. We've been fighting authority figures since we crawled out of the caves. The Zephyrians might be advanced, but they've never faced a species that simply refuses to believe they're gods." Carter smiled grimly. It was true. Throughout human history, people had been told to bow down to kings, emperors, and supposed divine beings. And throughout human history, there had always been people who refused to kneel. "How long until the Valkyrie is ready for deployment?" Carter asked. 2 weeks for final systems testing," Dr. Wright replied. "After that, she's ready to fight." That was when the emergency alarm began to sound. Red lights flashed throughout the briefing room, and the main display switched to an incoming transmission. The face of Colony Administrator Jake Morrison appeared on the screen, looking desperate and afraid. "Earth Command, this is New Haven Colony. We are under attack by hostile aliens calling themselves Zephyrians. They claim to be gods and are demanding our surrender. We have approximately 70 hours before they begin what they call divine integration. Request immediate military assistance." We are completely cut off from all communications except this quantum relay. The transmission cut to static, then went dead. The room erupted in voices, but Carter held up his hand for silence. His worst fears were coming true. The enemy had reached one of humanity's most important colonies, and they were running out of time. Captain Rodriguez, how quickly can you get the Valkyrie to the Kepler 442 system? Nina was already running calculations in her head. 12 days if we push the drives to maximum. But Admiral, we haven't finished all the tests. We don't know if the weapons will work against their shields. We don't know if the armor can handle their energy weapons. We're about to find out, Carter said. Ladies and gentlemen, humanity's first real test has arrived. We're going to find out if we can build ships that can kill gods. 2 hours later, the Valkyrie launched from the secret shipyard orbiting Jupiter. Captain Rodriguez stood on the bridge, watching the stars stretch into lines as the ship entered faster than light travel. Her crew of 200 worked quietly at their stations, each one knowing that the fate of humanity might rest on their shoulders. Phoenix, run a full diagnostic on all systems, Nina commanded. All systems operating within normal parameters, Captain. The AI replied in a calm, synthetic voice. Estimated time to New Haven, 11 days, 14 hours, 23 minutes. And what are our chances of success against an enemy that claims to be gods? Unknown, Captain. But I have been programmed with one certainty. Gods bleed the same as anyone else when you hit them hard enough. Minya smiled. Humanity was about to announce its arrival on the galactic stage, and they were going to do it with the biggest gun they had ever built. The Valkyrie dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system like a predator, entering a hunting ground. Captain Nina Rodriguez stood on the bridge, watching the tactical display light up with enemy contacts. The Zephyrian fleet was even larger than the intelligence reports had suggested. 23 ships, reported Tactical Officer Amy Johnson. All of them are bigger than us. The largest one is 10 kilometers long. They're arranged in a perfect defensive formation. Around New Haven, beautiful ships, added communications specialist Ben Parker, almost whispering. They look like living crystals. The way they catch the starlight, it's like looking at jewelry made by angels. Nina understood what he meant. The Zephyrian vessels were works of art, each one unique and flowing like frozen music. They seemed to bend light around themselves, creating rainbow patterns that danced across their hulls. Compared to them, the Valkyrie looked like a crude metal club. Don't let their pretty looks fool you, warned Chief Engineer Tony Martinez from the engine room. Those ships are armed with weapons that can crack planets, and according to the sensor readings, they're all pointed at the colony. Nina activated the long-range scanners and focused on New Haven. The colony was still there, but something was wrong. The people were moving in strange patterns, working on massive construction projects that made no sense. They were building temples and statues, using their farming equipment to carve giant symbols into the ground. They're worshipping them, Nina said quietly. Just like the other colonies. Captain, we're being hailed, Ben reported. It's coming from the largest ship. The main view screen flickered to life, showing a being that was both beautiful and terrible. High Celestial Vexthara stood nearly 9 feet tall, with skin that looked like polished diamond. Light moved beneath the surface like liquid fire, and when he spoke, his voice carried the weight of absolute authority. Small vessel, you enter sacred space without permission. I am High Celestial Vexthara, chosen of the eternal light, speaker, for the divine will. Your people below have already accepted their place in the cosmic order. You will join them in worship, or you will be destroyed. Nina stepped forward, her jaw set with determination. This is Captain Nina Rodriguez of the Mihu. United Earthship Valkyrie. We're here to evacuate human civilians from New Haven. Withdraw your ships and allow us to proceed. Vextharos crystal features twisted into what might have been amusement. You speak to a god as if you were equals. Your ignorance is almost charming. Very well. I shall demonstrate why mortals kneel before the divine. The transmission cut off, and immediately the largest Zephyrian ship began to move. It was graceful and smooth, like a whale swimming through space. But as it approached the Valkyrie, Nina could see weapon ports opening along its hull. The ship was 3 times the size of the human vessel, and it glowed with barely contained power. "This is Sub-Celestial Raxmo, commander of the Divine Hammer," came a new voice. "Surrender your primitive vessel immediately. The gods do not wish to destroy you if it can be avoided. Your ship will be broken down for scrap, and your crew will serve in the sacred mines of Zephyria Prime." "Captain, they're charging weapons," Amy reported. "Energy readings are off the charts. Whatever they're about to hit us with, it's powerful enough to vaporize a small moon." Nina looked around the bridge at her crew. These were the best people humanity had to offer, and they were about to face their first real test. Tony was monitoring the engines, ready to give her every ounce of power. Amy had her fingers on the weapons controls, waiting for the order to fire. Ben was tracking all communications, ready to coordinate with the colony if they got the chance. "Phoenix, analysis of the enemy vessel," Nina commanded. "The Divine Hammer is approximately 2.8 kilometers in length," the AI replied. "It appears to be constructed from a crystalline material that deflects most forms of energy. However, I detect several potential weak points in the structure. Their shields are powerful, but operate on a frequency that our adaptive plasma cannons can penetrate." "Are you certain?" "No, Captain. But I am confident." Nina smiled grimly. Confidence was all they had right now. "All hands, battle stations. This is what we trained for. Show these aliens what happens when they threaten human colonies." The Zephyrian ship fired first. A beam of pure white energy lanced out across space, so bright it lit up the entire system. The beam hit the Valkyrie's shields and exploded in a cascade of lightning. The ship shook violently, and sparks flew from several control panels. "Shields down to 60%, Tony reported, but the adaptive armor is already learning. Next hit won't be as bad." "Return fire," Nina ordered. Amy's fingers danced over her controls, and the Valkyrie's main guns spoke for the first time in anger. The adaptive plasma cannons fired in sequence, sending bolts of superheated matter racing toward the Divine Hammer. The shots struck the Zephyrian shields and exploded in brilliant flashes of light. For a moment, nothing happened. Then cracks began to appear in the crystalline hull of the enemy ship. The cracks spread like spider webs, and suddenly an entire section of the Divine Hammer's forward hull blew outward in a shower of crystal fragments. "Impossible," came Raxmo's voice over the communication channel. "No mortal weapon can harm the blessed hull of a divine vessel." "Apparently it can," Nina replied. "Surrender now, and we'll discuss terms." The Divine Hammer's response was to fire every weapon it had. Energy beams, plasma torpedoes, and weapons that had no name in human language all struck the Valkyrie at once. The ship's shields collapsed completely, and the adaptive armor began to glow red-hot. "Hull breach on Deck 7, Tony reported. "But the armor is adapting faster than they can adjust their weapons." "We can take more hits than they think." "Their weapons are losing effectiveness," Amy added. "Each shot is doing less damage than the last. But Captain, we need to end this quickly. The other ships are starting to move." Nina looked at the tactical display. The entire Zephyrian fleet was awakening like a nest of disturbed wasps. If they all attacked at once, even the Valkyrie wouldn't be able to survive. Target their main reactor, Nina ordered. Phoenix, give me a firing solution. Calculating, the AI replied. Solution found. Firing in 3.2.1. The Valkyrie's main guns fired again. This time in a concentrated burst, they focused all their power on a single point. The shots punched through the Divine Hammer's weakened shields and struck the reactor core directly. The explosion was visible from New Haven, 200 million kilometers away. The Divine Hammer simply ceased to exist, vaporized in a burst of light that outshone the system's sun for several seconds. When the light faded, there was nothing left but expanding gas and crystal fragments. The Zephyrian fleet stopped moving. Complete silence fell over the communication channels. On New Haven, the enslaved colonists stopped their work and looked up at the sky in confusion. They killed a god, Ben whispered. The colonists are starting to remember who they are. Nina activated the fleet-wide communication system. Her voice carried to every Zephyrian ship and down to every human on the planet's surface. This is Captain Nina Rodriguez of the United Earth ship Valkyrie. We don't recognize your divine authority. We don't bow to your superior technology. And we certainly don't worship alien conquerors who threaten human colonies. She paused, looking out at the enemy fleet that had seemed so powerful just moments before. We are humanity. We killed your godship with good engineering and better training. If you want to see more of your divine fleet turned into scrap metal, keep threatening our people. Otherwise, withdraw from this system immediately. The response came from Vexthara himself, and for the first time, his voice carried a note of uncertainty. What manner of beings are you? How can mortals harm the chosen of the gods? Nina's answer would become famous throughout human space, repeated in military academies and colonial briefings for generations to come. We're the species that looks at your gods and sees target practice. The battle for New Haven had begun, and humanity had just announced to the galaxy that even gods could die, when humans brought the right tools to the fight. The silence that followed the destruction of the Divine Hammer lasted exactly 17 seconds. Then High Celestial Vexthara's voice exploded across every communication channel in the system, filled with a rage that shook the very fabric of space. You dare to murder the chosen of heaven? You dare to raise weapons against the divine order? For this blasphemy, your entire species will burn in the fires of righteous judgment. The Zephyrian fleet came alive with terrible purpose. 22 ships moved toward the Valkyrie like a swarm of angry angels, their crystalline hulls blazing with weapons that could destroy planets. Each ship was a masterpiece of alien engineering, powered by technology that bent the laws of physics and armed with the fury of beings who truly believed they were gods. Captain Nina Rodriguez watched the enemy fleet approach and felt no fear. Her crew had trained for this moment, and they were ready. Phoenix, tactical analysis, she ordered. 22 enemy vessels approaching in attack formation, the AI replied. Estimated time to weapon range, 4 minutes, 30 seconds. Recommendation: we cannot survive a direct assault from the entire fleet. Suggest hit-and-run tactics using superior speed and maneuverability. Agreed. Tony, give me everything the engines have got. Amy, prepare for rapid-fire engagement. Ben, monitor all enemy communications. I want to know what they're saying to each other. The Valkyrie accelerated toward the enemy fleet, its fusion drives pushing it to speeds it would have been impossible for the older generation of human ships. But the Zephyrians were fast too, and they had numbers on their side. The first enemy, ship to reach firing range, was a sleek vessel called the Celestial Sword. Its commander, Sub-Celestial Quinder, opened fire with weapons that turned space itself into a weapon. Reality twisted around the energy beams, creating tears in the fabric of existence that tried to drag the Valkyrie into some dimension where the laws of physics no longer applied. Shields are holding, but that's not normal energy, Tony reported. They're using some kind of space-time manipulation. The adaptive armor is trying to figure out how to defend against attacks that don't technically exist. Nina spun the ship in a corkscrew pattern, dodging between the reality-warping beams while Amy returned fire with the plasma cannons. The shots struck the celestial sword's shields and exploded in cascades of light, but the enemy ship kept coming. There. Shields are tougher than the last one, Amy said, but I'm seeing patterns in the energy matrix. Give me 30 seconds to analyze the frequency. Nina didn't have 30 seconds. 2 more Zephyrian ships were closing in from different angles, and their combined firepower would overwhelm even the Valkyrie's adaptive defenses. She needed to think like a human, not like a military academy textbook. Phoenix, are there any asteroids in this system? Affirmative. Large asteroid field, approximately 10 million kilometers from our current position. Plot a course. We're going to use the terrain. The Valkyrie raced toward the asteroid field with the entire Zephyrian fleet in pursuit. The aliens fired continuously, their weapons lighting up space like a deadly fireworks display. Some shots missed, but others struck. The human ship's shields and armor, each impact teaching the adaptive systems how to better defend against divine wrath. Entering the asteroid field, Nina announced. Hold on, everyone. This is going to get interesting. The Valkyrie dove into the maze of spinning rocks, using its superior maneuverability to weave between asteroids the size of cities. The Zephyrian ships followed, but their larger size and less flexible formations made them vulnerable to the human captain's tactics. Nina led them deeper into the field, then suddenly reversed course and opened fire on the lead ship. The plasma cannons had finally adapted to the enemy shield frequency, and this time the shots punched through the celestial sword's defenses like bullets through paper. The alien ship exploded in a shower of crystal fragments and superheated gas. The explosion set off a chain reaction that destroyed 3 nearby asteroids and damaged 2 more Zephyrian vessels. 2 gods down, Amy reported with grim satisfaction. 20 left to go. The battle that followed became known as the Dance of the Valkyrie. Nina used every trick she had learned in 20 years of military service, combined with the ship's superior technology and the crew's absolute refusal to give up. They led the Zephyrian fleet through the asteroid field like a pack of wolves chasing a rabbit. But the rabbit had claws, and the wolves kept dying. The Harmony of Light tried to ram the Valkyrie and died. Tony overloaded the fusion drives for a burst of speed that let them slip away at the last second. The ramming ship crashed into an asteroid and broke apart like a wine glass hitting a wall. The Divine Wrath launched fighters that moved like living starlight. But Ben figured out their communication frequency and jammed their control signals. The fighters crashed into each other in their confusion, creating a spectacular light show that briefly outshone the system's sun, the Eternal. Judgment tried to use its psychic weapons to drive the human crew insane, but Nina had ordered everyone to wear the neural shielding helmets that Earth scientists had developed after studying captured Zephyrian technology. The alien mind control attempts bounced off the shielding like rain off a window. One by one, the divine fleet fell to human weapons and human tactics. The Zephyrians had superior technology, but they had never faced an enemy that simply refused to be impressed by their claims of godhood. Every time they tried a new weapon or tactic, the humans adapted and found a way to turn it against them. Their formation is breaking down, Amy reported after the 15th ship exploded. They're starting to make mistakes. Some of them are even firing on each other. Nina could hear the panic in the alien communications. The Zephyrians were used to enemies who fell down and worshipped them after the first demonstration of power. They had never fought a species that got more determined with each attack. "This is impossible," came Vexthara's voice over the communication channel. You are mortals. You should be kneeling before the divine light, not destroying the blessed fleet of heaven. We're humans, Nina replied while dodging another wave of energy beams. We don't kneel to anyone, especially not to aliens who think they're gods. The High Celestial's response was to personally enter the battle. His flagship, the Light of Eternity, was the largest ship in the fleet and armed with weapons that could shatter moons. It moved through the asteroid field like a living mountain, its hull glowing with power that made the nearby rocks begin to melt. This is it, Nina announced to her crew. The big one. Everyone ready? Weapons charged and ready, Amy replied. Engines at maximum power, Tony added. All communications monitored and jamming ready, Ben confirmed. Phoenix, give me your best tactical analysis. The Light of Eternity is heavily armored and shielded, the AI replied. Direct assault is not recommended. However, I detect a weakness in their power distribution system. If we can overload their main reactor, the resulting explosion should destroy the ship. How do we overload their reactor? By making them fire their most powerful weapon at maximum capacity, while their shields are reconfiguring to match our plasma frequency. Nina smiled. It was a crazy plan, but crazy plans were what humans did best. All right, everyone. Let's go kill ourselves a god. The Valkyrie raced directly toward the Light of Eternity, all guns blazing. The flagship responded with a weapon that had never been used in battle before, a beam of pure creative force that could remake matter at the molecular level. The beam struck the Valkyrie's shields and tried to transform the ship into harmless dust, but the adaptive armor had learned from every previous attack. It absorbed the creative energy and used it to strengthen itself, turning the godship's ultimate weapon into a source of power for the human vessel. Now, Nina shouted out. Amy fired every weapon the Valkyrie and directly into the Light of Eternity's main reactor. The plasma cannons, quantum torpedoes, and point defense systems all struck the same spot at exactly the same moment. The alien ship's shields flickered and died, and the reactor core began to overload. Vexthara's final words echoed across the communication channels. Impossible. Gods cannot die. Ben, you were never gods to begin with, Nina replied. The Light of Eternity exploded with the force of a small star. The shockwave destroyed the remaining Zephyrian ships and lit up the entire system. When the light faded, only the Valkyrie remained, battered but victorious on New Haven. The colonists looked up at the sky and remembered who they were. The false gods were dead, and humanity had won its first victory in what would become known as the War of Liberation. The brig of the Valkyrie was a small, simple room with white walls and basic furniture. It had been designed to hold human prisoners, not alien gods, but it served its purpose well enough. High Celestial Vexthara sat on the narrow bench, his crystalline skin dim and gray, without the power of his fleet to sustain him. Captain Nina Rodriguez entered the room and sat down across from the former God Emperor. She had changed out of her battle uniform into simple work clothes, and she looked tired but satisfied. The fight for New Haven was over, but the real work was just beginning. Your divine fleet is gone, Nina said simply. 23 ships destroyed, including your flagship. Your crews are either dead or captured. Your empire is broken. What do you have to say for yourself? Vexthara looked up at her with eyes that held the weight of centuries. What manner of demons are you? How can mortals destroy the chosen of the gods? It is impossible. It goes against the natural order of the universe. We're not demons, Nina replied. We're just humans who refuse to kneel. But you are so small, so weak. Your technology is primitive compared to ours. Your lifespans are brief flickers compared to our eternal existence. How can you possibly defeat beings who have ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years? Nina leaned back in her chair, considering the question. It was a fair one. The Zephyrians did have superior technology, longer lifespans, and psychic abilities that humans could barely understand. By all logical measures, they should have been the superior species. You want to know what your problem is? Nina asked. You believed your own propaganda. You started thinking you really were gods, and that made you weak. Vexthara's crystal features twisted in confusion. Weak? We conquered 17 civilizations. We ruled over billions of beings. How does that make us weak? Because you never had to fight for it, Nina explained. Every species you met fell down and worshipped you the moment you showed up. You got used to easy victories. You forgot that real strength comes from struggle, from facing impossible odds and refusing to give up. Your weapons could not possibly harm us. We are divine beings, chosen by the cosmic forces themselves. Nina pulled out a small tablet and showed him the battle recordings. Watch this. See how your ships exploded just like any other ship when we hit them hard enough. See how your shields failed when we adapted our weapons to the right frequency? You bleed the same red blood as anyone else. That is impossible. No, it's engineering. Good, solid human engineering, backed up by people who don't believe in impossible. Nina stood up and walked to the small window that showed the stars outside. You know what the difference is between you, us, and all those other species you conquered? Vexthara said nothing, but his glowing eyes followed her movement. They wanted to believe in gods. They were looking for someone to worship, someone to tell them what to do and how to live. When you showed up with your fancy ships and your light shows, you gave them exactly what they wanted, a reason to stop thinking for themselves. And humans are different. Humans are stubborn. We've been fighting authority figures since we learned to walk upright. Kings, emperors, dictators, alien conquerors who think they're gods. It doesn't matter. We don't bow down easily, and we sure don't stay down when someone tries to step on us. The door to the brig opened, and communications specialist Ben Parker entered with a tablet full of reports. Captain, you need to see this. We're getting messages from all over the galaxy. Nina took the tablet and scrolled through the incoming transmissions. Her eyes widened as she read report after report of uprisings throughout former Zephyrian space. The Altarians have overthrown their Zephyrian overseers, she read aloud. The Vega Collective has declared independence. The Centauri Republic is fighting to reclaim their home worlds. It's happening everywhere. Ben nodded excitedly. Word of our victory spread faster than we expected. Every species that was enslaved by the Zephyrians is rising up. They're calling it the Great Liberation. Vexthara slumped on his bench, the last of his arrogance finally leaving him. Impossible. They were happy to serve. They worshipped us willingly. No, Nina said. They were afraid. Fear isn't the same as worship, and it definitely isn't the same as loyalty. The moment they saw that you could be beaten, they remembered who they really were. The tablet chimed with another incoming message. This one was from Admiral Carter back on Earth, and Nina smiled as she read it. Fleet Command is sending reinforcements, she announced. 12 more ships like the Valkyrie, plus support vessels and troop transports. They want us to help coordinate the liberation efforts. What will happen to me? Vexthara asked quietly. Nina looked at the former god emperor, this being who had enslaved billions and claimed divine authority over entire star systems. A year ago, she might have felt some sympathy for him. Now, after seeing what his empire had done to so many worlds and peoples, she felt only cold justice. You'll stand trial for crimes against sentient life. The species you enslaved will have their say in what happens to you. But first, you're going to help us find the rest of your fleets and free the remaining slave worlds. I will not betray my own people. Your people abandoned you the moment your ship exploded. We've been monitoring Zephyrian communications, and they're already fighting among themselves over who gets to be the new High Celestial. Your empire is eating itself alive." Vexthara was silent for a long moment, processing this information. Finally, he looked up at Nina with something that might have been respect. "You truly are not like the other species we encountered. There is something in you that refuses to break, no matter how much pressure is applied." "That's what makes us human," Nina replied. "We don't break. We bend, we adapt, we learn, and we come back stronger." 2 weeks later, the Valkyrie led a fleet of liberated worlds to the Zephyrian home system. The former slave species fought with a fury that surprised even the humans. The Altarians used their knowledge of Zephyrian technology to disable enemy ships from the inside. The Vega Collective's natural telepathic abilities proved immune to Zephyrian mind control. The Centauri Republic's warriors fought with a determination born from centuries of suppressed anger. The battle for Zephyria Prime lasted 3 days. When it was over, the last Zephyrian fleet had surrendered, and the galaxy's most powerful empire had fallen. Captain Nina Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the Valkyrie, looking out at a star field. That was fundamentally different from the one she had known just months before. Humanity had announced its presence to the galaxy in the most dramatic way possible, and the response had been everything they could have hoped for. "Captain," Amy Johnson called from her tactical station, "we're receiving a transmission from Earth." "It's Admiral Carter." The main view screen flickered to life, showing the familiar face of Earth's top military commander. Carter was smiling, something Nina had rarely seen him do. "Captain Rodriguez, congratulations on a job well done. Your actions at New Haven have changed the course of galactic history. The President wants to speak with you personally when you return to Earth." "Thank you, Admiral." But this wasn't just about one ship or one crew. This was about proving that freedom is stronger than fear, and that no being has the right to rule over others just because they claim divine authority. "Agreed, and that's why I'm promoting you to Admiral. You'll be in charge of the new Galactic Liberation Fleet. Your mission is to help the freed worlds establish stable governments, and to make sure that no species ever again falls under the control of would-be gods." Nina felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders, but it was a good weight. This was the work she had been born to do. "Understood, Admiral. We'll make sure the galaxy stays free." The transmission ended, and Nina turned to address her crew. These people had followed her into battle against impossible odds, and they had emerged victorious. But more than that, they had proven something important about humanity's place in the universe. "Ladies and gentlemen, we came out here to rescue a colony. Instead, we ended up liberating half the galaxy. Not bad for a day's work." The bridge crew laughed, but there was pride in their voices. They had faced gods and demons and impossible odds, and they had won through skill, determination, and the simple human refusal to accept defeat. Outside the viewports, new ships were arriving every hour. Former slave species bringing their knowledge and resources to the growing alliance. Human vessels carrying supplies and personnel to help with reconstruction efforts. Independent traders and explorers eager to see what opportunities the new galaxy might offer. The age of the false gods was over. The age of freedom had begun. And at the center of it all was a single human warship and its crew, proving once again that the most powerful force in the universe was not divine authority or superior technology. It was the simple human conviction that everyone deserved to be free, and the willingness to fight for that freedom, no matter what the cost. The galaxy would never be the same. And that was exactly how humanity liked it.